The way trading card game companies are managed has always fascinated me. I mean, you have the bare bones finance, budgeting, and accounting end of just the bare bones financials of the company, but then you also have the management decisions of where the game's going, how many sets to produce, what different products to put out, what's your target market, what have you. The real brains of it, right? Versus the just the whole skeleton structure of the finances. It's a very fascinating topic because overall there's a bunch of different approaches one can take when starting up a trading card game company. And the end result, I think, what everybody has green in their eyes about is literally when you hit critical mass, you are literally have a money machine and you're printing money because it's just ink on paper. Now, that ink on paper obviously has intellectual property and it also has a game that you can play, so there's a lot going into it. But legitimately, you are printing money. But it takes a lot of sales. It takes you a good amount of time to hit that critical mass or enough sales per year to become a money printer. Before that, it's a money pit. So getting to the money printer status takes a bit. And there's a bunch of different approaches, and I want to discuss that with you. Now, let's talk about the bare bones finances, right? The biggest issue, like I said, critical mass, it takes a while for companies to hit that because there's so much expenses one has to incur, right? You've got the staff expense, everyone who's, internally doing your artwork, marketing, card development, game testing, all the employees internally, they like to be fed. They like to have food on their tables, so you have to pay them money in order for them to live. So staffing expenses is a big one. Then you got printing the set expense. When you go to Card Monday or any other of the card printers out there, you need to pay them in order for them to ship you printed cards, preferably in a booster box. Then you got the artwork commissioning expense. You have to pay artists, I don't know, $400 to $600, give or take, per art piece. Maybe less, maybe more. I mean, definitely a lot less if you just go directly to random artists and work some deals out. But commissioning original artwork from scratch takes a good amount of money, especially when you have a set that has like 200 new cards or maybe 160 new cards. It's a good amount of expense that you're incurring, along with the office space expense. Where are you going to set your employees up and what are they going to do? Where are they going to be positioned and what have you? Office space is money. And then you've got the organized play expense and setting up different events out there that you have, especially when you're giving product to the local game store. Maybe you want to give them prize support for holding their events. All of that takes money, and that's so many different expenses that I've listed out. And literally the one source of revenue you have is give out a box or not give it out, but selling a box of trading cards. That is your main source of revenue. Of course, you have different little accessories like play mats or the starter decks, but all in all, the big revenue, the biggest portion of revenue you have as a new game company is the booster boxes. And the big question is, if you're selling a box or selling products for a whole year, how many boxes do you have to sell in order for it to tip the scale where the revenue exceeds the expenses that you're incurring? And it's really hard for a lot of games to reach that point, especially in the beginning. You have to, cut down a lot of expenses, try to be really, really lean in order for your revenue to overtake that. And honestly, the tough part about this is you need a slush fund because a lot of this things that you're doing, like staff and the artwork expense and printing a set, those you need to do months and months and months before a single booster box is sold. It usually takes around 6 months for the printing company to print the whole set that you have and ship it to you. I mean, they do it a lot faster than that, but there's a queue, and since you're new trading card games get like really low priority compared to the the other people who are printing that have higher priority. So it takes around like 5 months, especially if they're shipping it back to you on a slow boat. It may take even more time than that. So, there's a lot of cost, there's a lot of time you have to wait for that. The same with your staff. You have to pay them in advance. Same with the artwork. There's a lot of expenses and not many revenue portions in just a bare bones finance model of a trading card game. Then you've got the manager, so manager decisions and really the focus, the target market side over here of what the management decides the business should do, right? There's the finance aspect of, okay, this is the bare bones, finances, expenses, revenues, and everything like that, income statement basically, and you have the balance sheet, cash flow, whatever, but let's focus on income statement as the bare bones to see if you're actually profitable, if you can actually have a money machine versus a money pit. Then you have the management decisions over here, right? And it really fascinates me on the direction of new games out there and what they're deciding on, how management decides to really navigate the ship. So, using Flesh and Blood as the example first and foremost. For their finances, they've been fully paid off since 2021 from my understanding for their debt and everything. And they did reach money printer status in early 2021 after the boom and everything. So, and after that, they've been very, very, cash heavy and they've been making a really good amount of money. I think they made $50 million in 2023. I'd be and when I say 50 million, I meant revenue. So the income from that is yet to be known, but it's probably a good portion of that. Probably 20 million or so like that from, maybe more. I don't know. But long story short, they're doing great financially wise. Now, business decision direction wise, I think that Flesh and Blood, Legend Story Studios, James White, has been really focused on competitive play since the very beginning of the game and making a solid game and being the best competitive TCG out there, right, on the market. Which was, in the beginning, it sounded like an insane goal. Now, it's like, okay, you did it. Great job. You're doing it. You're pretty much there. People can debate in 2025, oh, are they the best or is someone else the best? They're definitely in the top 3. But, let's put that aside. In the beginning, it was like a ridiculous, endeavor. But now they're here. And I think that has really served them well. Just having a constant focus on, okay, who's your target market? Your target market is, men with, between the ages of 16 and 25. Of course, the game is for everyone, but that is your core demographic of sweaty nerds in game stores across the world and, bringing them together to play a really amazing game. That is their laser focus, right? They've definitely had different pillars that help other different demographics, but that has been the number one priority for them over this period of time. And you've seen the reason why it's working is because they're playing to their strengths. They're putting, now in 2025, a $1.5 million cash pool, right? And in 2024, I believe it was $1 million. In 2023, I think it was $1 million. So they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're trying to really focus on what they do best, which is gameplay and having a really well-developed game and a very solid game. And they've got 15 sets of the game, and you can use basically every card available in those sets. There's no rotating sets. There's no cards just aren't able to be used anymore. There is a ban list, I will admit, but it's extremely small compared to the overlying card pool of the sets. So they're focused on gameplay and just building out a really great competitive game. That's why I think they've succeeded very well. It's because they know their strength. Their strength is the game. The game is really damn good, so they're going to focus on what's really damn good, which is the gameplay. And overall, the finance portion, it's very interesting to me how they run a bunch of different events. And from those events, of course, there's going to be, revenue from the vendors having to pay them money, but then also they have to shell out money to, get the big booths or the venues, if you will. I don't really know much about those types of endeavors and how profitable those are. I imagine those events maybe net a little bit at the end of the day, but I would have to imagine, there's a good amount of expense running those. So maybe they break even or make a little money. I'd be very curious to see what type of revenue type stream is from events, because overall, like I said in the beginning, the bare bones, okay, like I'm focused on flesh and blood. The bare bones of just the normal finance business model is you sell a box to distribution sells to stores, store sells to customers. That is your primary revenue stream, not big events, right? For new trading card games, it's not a big revenue driver. But there's a lot of events out there for Flesh and Blood. I have to imagine they're maybe they make 10%, 20%, maybe more. I'm not sure. If you have any information, put it down below. But basically, they're selling a lot of booster boxes. They've hit critical mass and plus. They're making a lot of money there. They're making a smaller amount of money, I believe, on the events, but they're holding them, and it's gathering a bunch of people into the events in just really good marketing endeavor, right? And it really establishes them as the biggest competitive TCG circuit out there. And the reason why it's working, again, is because they have a really damn good game. Now, I want to go into a couple other games out there on the horizon, and this is just my opinions from what I think that they should be doing as a business, what I think that will make the games succeed, and where I see them now. I want to preface this with, of course, I'm really biased towards Flesh and Blood, but I've been analyzing trading card games for a very long time. I'm just saying it like it is, right? You can think my opinion is shit. It's okay. Please tell me down below why I'm wrong or what your opinions are. This is just how I see it, but I'm not speaking. I hope this doesn't come across as oh, I'm tribalistic and I love Flesh and Blood and I'm shitting on all these other games. No, I'm just telling it like it is. So here we go. Metazoo. So you got Metazoo, right? they cratered into the ground last year, in the beginning of last year. It's very unfortunate. And apparently there's a new company called Metazoo. Metazoo, the funny pun there. There's a new company that's like an incubator company that's supposed to incubate a bunch of these, a bunch of new TCGs in the future, apparently. And Richard Garfield is kind of associated with it or something. I don't know too much. All I want to say with Metazoo is it seems like there's a revival in 2025 in Q1, Q2. I think that the company, the people who are managing the company, just need to face the reality that the gameplay of Metazoo is just complete shit. I don't care what you want to say. The gameplay is just really bad. And there's a lot of Metazoo content creators back in the day who just plug Metazoo and everything like that. And when they were banned or something from the game, or when they decided to leave, a lot of them even admitted the game isn't very good. The game isn't very robust at all. I've been analyzing a lot of games and gameplay, and it's really, really fucking bad. So I think from the start, you have to go with, hey, Metazoo Legacy, which was all the sets up until the past, but then going forward, you gotta make things completely different with the gameplay. Make it streamlined. I'll give you a easy tip here. Instead of the aura system being in your deck like Magic the Gathering, just put it as a side deck and you gain 1 resource per turn or 1 aura per turn, just like Hearthstone or any other, like a Hearthstone or a resource system. That will make the game 2 times better without doing anything else. So that's a freebie for you. But there's so many other things you need to work on with the counter system and the tempo. If one person gets tempo early on, they always win, especially with the board. There's not enough board clear. So the game in its state from the past, 2024 and before sucks ass. You need a better gameplay. The other thing is the main core issue with Metazoo is it had no target market. Think about Flesh and Blood. It has a target market. Sweaty ass nerds who are competitive in trading card games, who love great games, or just people in general who love playing great competitive games. Metazoo is like, oh well, we're for kids because we have little cryptid things, but we're also for adults because we have edgy stuff. Oh, and we're a casual game because you can have the fourth wall effect. Oh, but we're really competitive as well, and we have big tournaments as well. And they tried to copy what Flesh and Blood was doing, like $1 million prize pool. Let's see how that went. But they go both ways on so many different topics. And Mike Waddell back in the day even said himself, I don't believe we have a target market. Metazoo is for everyone. It's a very simple phrase. When you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing nobody. That's Metazoo in a nutshell. And I think that if it's redone with Meta2, the revival, the only way it can succeed is if it tries to make more better looking artwork that appeals to children, and you use your target connections and what have you, and you appeal your target market towards children who don't have enough money for Pokemon or want something that's Pokemon-esque, right? Metazoo from the get-go was a Pokemon clone. The biggest problem too is that it was the Ken Sigamori artwork, which appeals to adults more who have nostalgia for that artwork. Kids do not have nostalgia or do not like the old artwork of Pokemon, the Ken Sigamori. It is true. They do not like the low definition DPI artwork. They like the high quality Rayquaza bullshit. So that's, theatrics aside, what Meta2 needs to do is first totally overhaul the game, make it a lot simpler, look at Lorcana, do something like that. Just simplistic, easy to pick up, geared towards low IQ individuals, kids, no offense to them, but lower brain power individuals. And then also for your artwork, completely cater it to kids. That's how I think Metazoo could possibly succeed. But I wouldn't hold your breath on that. So next I want to talk about Altered TCG. Now Altered has a really interesting business model. I don't believe it'll last long term. I think it'll just be like a 2-set thing, and then they're just going to blame the whole logistics on everything on why it can't succeed, and the expenses are way overshadowing the revenue. But I like what they're doing. So if you haven't heard of Altered, essentially they did a Kickstarter a while back, they released and everything, and I think they're going to do set 2 and I don't know when. But essentially their whole shtick is there's a barcode on each card, and you can scan it, and you have an account on like an app on your phone, and you have all the cards, and you could trade them to other people all around the world through your app. And you set a price online, like $50 for a card, and then when someone else buys it, boom, instantly it sells. Now here's the interesting part. You don't have to ship them the card. No. That person then puts a request to Cardamundi to print that card, and they charge them $1 plus shipping, and that Cardamundi ships directly to that person. And so the revenue system and the trading there, I think the company who runs the, I think it's Asmodee, right? They run Altered TCG. They get like a cut of the trade. So if it was $50, they get like a $5 commission fee to facilitate that transaction. And I think when the card is reprinted, it also gets, a little bit funnel there. So long story short, right, with everything I just said, the business model here is not only a booster box that they're selling to consumers, or booster box they're selling to distro selling to stores are selling to consumers. Not only booster box sales, but marketplace sales, which is very, very enticing. Because if they're making 10% on all marketplace transactions, that could add up. That could be a pretty penny. And I like that whole, I like what they're trying to do, right? On paper, it sounds interesting. The biggest thing I just don't understand about it is, like, I don't know what problem it's really solving. And I think there's going to be so much more logistical issues compared to just, shipping a card from one person to another. So overall, I think it's an interesting business idea, but I think in practice, it's just going to just be a complete dumpster fire once things happen. And what happens when someone's account gets hacked, and whoever hacked it just sends out cards to other accounts and everything, and managing all of that is going to be a logistical nightmare. However, I think it sounds pretty cool on paper. Also, the collector aspect, if you could just constantly reprint a card from Cardamundi, then there's no grading. Like, if you get a card that has a bent corner, just reprint it and then send it off for grading. You get a 9.5, reprint it again, grade it again. So card grading is going to be pointless because you can just completely print it as many times as you want to get that 10, right? So that I think is going to weed out a lot of high-end collectors. But overall, from just looking at the whole aesthetics of it, I see how it does appeal to teenagers and more kids. But it just feels very hollow, very empty. It doesn't feel like it's trying to say something or just really convey something. It seems more of like we built this lore and aesthetics just because we wanted to make a game, and it feels very hollow to me. I've looked into a bit, just doesn't feel natural to me. There's no natural aspect. It feels very synthetic. But as a business company, or as a company for what they're doing, I don't know what I'd tell them to do differently other than what they're doing. I think the biggest thing that I would do if I was them is say, just screw it with the initial booster box opening. Make it so on your freaking app, you can open a booster box. You can pay with your credit card and open the box just like Pokemon has right now. And think about the expense reduction that you have. Instead of selling the box to a distributor sells it to stores sell it to a customer. Think about that chain of people making money. Instead of that, you as Asmodee or you would Ultra TCG, you could literally sell your box straight to a consumer, sell it for $80. You make 100% of that product. You didn't have to print it, so no printing expense, no wait time. You don't have to wait for a slow boat to chug its way across the continent to get to you and get to them and whatever have you. You deal with you axe all that stuff. So I think that is the biggest thing that they can do in order to reduce expenses dramatically and help out the and facilitate transactions a lot better, right? If they can do it through the app, I think that they're going to succeed. Or when I say succeed, I think they're going to last more than 2 or 3 years. I think they'll, maybe they'll get to the year 5 through 8. But that is the big thing with their business model that I think is a flaw. There's no reason why they should be printing a bunch of boxes at release. I mean, if anything, maybe you say, okay, you can print a physical box and it can be shipped directly to you from Cardamundi. And I know what you're going to say. Hey, Bronson, you're cutting out the local game store. Local game stores need help too. I agree with that. I agree with your sentiment, even though I was mocking you in a very insincere way. I think that there's good prize support that you can allocate just to stores. So like gold foil, prize cards, and Flesh and Blood, you can do a similar where you can only get a certain rarity card in the game store, and then you give them digital copies of it, right? And that would be great too, is you don't have to ship out all this organized play bullshit kits to people, to stores. You can literally just get all your promo cards, right, in digital form, and then send an email out to all of the stores and say, hey, here's your emailed, a QR code for these, 20 promos that you can give out during release or during an event and stuff. So I think that is the way they should go, is if you're going to go digital, do digital, right? Don't do this half-assed bullshit where you have all the expenses of a normal printing and then also do the digital thing. Just go full digital, but also give local game stores promos in that way. Next, I want to talk about Sorcery. Now, Sorcery is an interesting one. I think that they know who their target market is, which is a lot different from a lot of other trading card games out there. They know that they're catering to old Magic the Gathering refugees who love the old school artwork and the oil paintings and whatever have you. And I commend that. I think they've built a product that people legitimately want to buy. Um, the biggest thing that I don't understand with Sorcery, and I think that if you're in the Sorcery community, if you know people in the Sorcery community, the biggest question that still needs to be answered is, how do you make the game succeed when there is only one set released every year? There has never been a trading card game out there that has had one set a year and succeeded. Look at Wizards of the Coast. They've upped the amount of sets that they've been printing over the years. They've constantly increased it, right? But one set a year does not make you succeed from a business standpoint. Think about it. I'll say the expenses again. You've got staff. You got printing the set. You've got artwork commissioning. And in Sorcery, the artwork is even more because it's oil painting. And then you have office space expense, organized play expense. There's a lot of expenses when making a trading card game, and there's no way you can do it when you do one set a year in a conventional manner. It just doesn't work. And personally, I think what they've been doing is reprinting beta. So beta was printed initially, I believe, alpha was printed with 25,000 boxes. Beta, we don't know how much the print run was, which was kind of strange how they would obscure that. And then it's been reprinted 2 extra times after that. And I think the big excuse they have is, well, we need new players to join the game, and if the boxes are really high, then your new players won't be able to afford it and play the game. But I think that is just so much bullshit, right? Like, that is not the truth. The truth, I think, is like, because beta sells. They make money off of beta, so they printed it a good amount afterwards to sustain their business. Now, I think that overall, the biggest factor as well, I think the biggest factor is they have Rudy Heroin in them right now. So Rudy from Alpha Investments, great guy. He is a big hype man for the game, along with other trading card games like Flesh and Blood. And it's just what happens to the market, right? If he pumps a game, if he talks about it and hypes it up, a lot of money and investment and like eyeballs go into the game in the short run. In the first 2 years of the operation of the game, everything feels great. Prices go dramatically up. Everything's great. But once it hits that 3rd and 4th year, you see a downward dip. It's just like heroin. At first, you're like, damn, this is good. But then after a while, you get the shakes and things don't go good then. So I think that it does have that in itself, is that you're going to see that slump eventually. And that is a really critical point for the game to just do other things to just maintain itself when it goes through that rough patch. It's currently still in the bubble phase, but once that bubble pops and interest wanes, you need to sustain your business through that. Flesh and Blood had this during the Monarch era in 2021 through 2022. It was a rough period of time, a lot of FUD, a lot of annoyance. So it was a lot of doom and gloom as well. You're going to have that in Sorcery. And either the game is going to buckle down and be prepared for this, or it's going to take them completely by surprise and they're just going to, pack it up, right? And it's just very important for them to know that that's on the horizon. And nothing against Rudy. I think he does a good job explaining, the market as it is. But overall, it's just the effect that he has on games. It just is what it is because of his influence and the people who invest in games and the whole vibe and what have you from that. Now, you might say, Bronson, okay, you've shit on Sorcery. How do you make it work, right? And the biggest way you make Sorcery work is Sorcery Contested Realm. Eric, I hope you're listening to me. You need to make money on selling the artwork. Right now, I feel like Sorcery's biggest thing is the artwork commissioning is too expensive and they don't maintain the IP towards the artwork that is being produced, which just blows my mind. So out there right now, let's say you have a random oil painting that is not assigned to a trading card game, probably get like $1,000 for it, maybe $800. When you have Sorcery Contested Realms logo on it, you could get 3,000 plus. Why is Sorcery not making money off of that price increase in the artwork, or not even owning the IP? So here's how I change it. If I was Eric right now, send an open invitation to all oil painting artists, say, hey, please submit all the any oil painting that you already have. Send us a picture and with the price of the oil painting. And we want to do a business model where where Sorcery maintains the IP of that oil painting, right? But then that oil painting is not purchased by Sorcery, but it's auctioned off, and Sorcery makes like 40%. The artist makes like 50%, and Collector's Art House, which is Mike from Collector's Art House, which is he's already doing that. He makes 10%, but he's like the official guy to sell artwork for Sorcery Contested Realms, right? He's the only guy. So all the artwork gets funneled to Mike, and then Mike sells it periodically through the year. And then once it sells each painting, you distribute the amount of money towards each individual. And Sorcery maybe will spend like $300 for the commission just at the point of sale. Like, hey, here's $300 for this artwork. Let's auction it off and then distribute the percentages and everything. So in this way, you make your biggest expense your revenue driver, something that can earn revenue periodically through the year. So it's very similar to Altered. You take the marketplace and you monetize it. This is taking the artwork creation and monetizing it. And I really want to give a huge shout out to Mike from Collector's Art House. He loves Sorcery Contested Realms, and I think out of any content creator out there or business person, he has really promoted the shit out of that game and has done an amazing job, right? Because he's found the business model that works. He found what interests people, which is the artwork. You make a trading card game about the artwork, but then you don't have any means to buying the artwork, and then you don't know anything about the artwork, and you don't know the artists. That's what Mike has done. He's like, hey everyone, I've spoken to the artist. Here's what their name is. Here's what they're about. Here's what the artwork that you love represents. And here's a way to buy the artwork. That is the business model. And that's what Sorcery Contested Realms needs to really just get in their back pocket, is this revenue stream. And they could do it immediately. So let's say right now they send an email, say, hey, we're interested in oil paintings, and someone has a oil painting about a hedgehog, and you want to make Patty the Hedgehog as a card. Just a stupid example, right? Eric pays $300 for that oil painting for the hedgehog, and then that painting is shipped to Mike. He maintains the IP ownership of that, and then Mike auctions it out, and then let's say that sells for let's say let's say $3,000 because it's a pretty little hedgehog. Sorcery gets 40%, Mike gets 10%, artist gets 50%, and think about it from the artist. The oil painting's value has increased because they're part of the platform, which is Sorcery, and then also they can get a easy transaction through this and money back into their bank account. It's a win-win-win for everyone. Also, it makes it so the hype cycle with one set, because you only have one set a year, you can auction paintings off throughout the entire year. So it keeps interest alive in Sorcery because you have card reveals constantly every couple of weeks when Mike auctions off a painting for a future set. So I think that is the business model, and that is what would make Sorcery Contested Realms work for their whole concept of just producing one set a year. Also, they need to reduce the print run. I think that the problem with Sorcery is it just can't scale. And what I haven't gone into is the gameplay is just, it's here. It's a 4 or a 5. There's issues where I think that the main way you win in Sorcery is you basically have to cheese a certain interaction with cards to where your opponent can't deal with it, and then you win. So it's kind of like a weird feeling where you're trying to just break the game in certain interactions with different cards to, shit on your opponent versus actually like a back and forth interaction, right? And the gameplay is just very complex, and you're putting cards over on top of each other. It's not something I think that was developed with. I don't think it was play tested enough, and I don't think it was dumbed down enough. Just saying it like it is. And even just in the past, if you're a true Sorcery fan, you know that the Kickstarter was delayed a good portion because the gameplay wasn't where they wanted to. And I don't think they even said what they did with the gameplay. So the gameplay just isn't there to where you can scale this game too much. Focus on the individuals out there who are your core demographic of just older individuals who like old Magic the Gathering stuff, right? They're not as interested in the gameplay. It's about collecting stuff. It's about set collecting and whatever have you. Those are your core individuals. There would be a lot of other people in the background who say like, "Oh, if the players can't get the cards, then no one's going to play the game." Don't listen to those people. Those people don't know what they're talking about. The only way Sorcery survives is if it doesn't scale too large. Have the print runs be 40, 50,000 max, and then instead of making that extra revenue, right, for making more boxes, your revenue stream is going to be your art sales. Focus on the art sales as your supplemental income stream in order to supplement the less availability of the product, right? And in that way, you're going to add value to the boxes that you're selling, and you'll maintain interest there because it's a lower print run, while also, making that extra stream that is going to make you, profit, and it's going to really make the business model work. Because when we're talking about business models, we're thinking like, okay, this is what is going to make this company successful. And currently, you have a company that is only making one set a year, and they have not explained at all how they are going to supplement the revenue streams for the loss of, different revenue from 2 or 3 other sets per year, right? There's no other explanation. I could point to Altered and say, hey, they're looking at the marketplace, right? And other TCGs, they have other different things that they're trying. But with Sorcery, it's just like there's no answer for that. So the main thing I want to harp on in the end is Sorcery just needs to capitalize on the art sales and needs to work directly with Mike, give him exclusive access to all artwork that is made for Sorcery to auction off on his site, because he's doing a really damn good job and he loves the game, and he's a true one for you guys. You're really lucky there. So that is how you make Sorcery succeed with its current structure as is, and you don't focus on competitive play. If you focus on competitive play, it's not gonna succeed, because Sorcery just isn't there. It's not a competitive game like Flesh and Blood. It doesn't have the great gameplay of Flesh and Blood. The gameplay, again, is just here. I'm just saying it like it is. It's just not there. It's like, it's under good. It's just, it is a game, right? But that is not your true focus. It's the enjoyment of oil painting artwork and people who love the artwork of the trading card games. It's a platform. Sorcery is a platform. And I do have to give it to Eric that I love how he incorporated old Magic the Gathering artists into the first set in Alpha and Beta, right? Brilliant move, right? Melissa Benson and Steve Argyle, I believe. I could be wrong there. But just a bunch of old Magic the Gathering artists. Steve Frazetta, it got eyeballs from the Magic the Gathering community. Now it's time to cheap out and find a bunch of up and coming artists and make them, and you have a platform for their oil painting art, which will make their artwork more money, and you need to capitalize on the money that your platform is making for the new artwork. So I think I've spoken pretty in depth of that, but at this point in time, I think beta is extremely overprinted. And I don't know. At first, I think a year or two ago, I thought, man, if they print more than 75,000 boxes, I think that the game's gonna flop. And they printed it once, they printed it twice, and then they've printed it 3 times. So I'm like, oh shit, did they print like 150,000 boxes or 200,000 boxes? Because each print run can't be a small amount. It has to, anyway. I think beta's way overprinted. Saint from the Fabled Hunters YouTube channel said it recently, and I think that was very true. So I don't know how that's going to be dealt with. But I think that the way I've outlined it, again, just quick summary, is if the revenue stream of making money off of new artwork for your future sets, of the oil painting artwork, getting a kickback and also owning the IP to that artwork. The artwork is sold to someone else, but they don't own the IP, you do, right? Will make it so you build your IP over a long period of time, and also you make your biggest expense or one of your largest expenses into one of a huge revenue driver. So that's my thoughts on Sorcery. Yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to cover is those 3 other games other than Flesh and Blood. But just to ramble on a little bit at the end, just the business side of trading card games is fascinating. It's it's a whole nother world, right? And the whole dream is to make a money printer. It is to make it so you can literally print ink onto cardboard, sell it to people, and they give you actual monetary money in return for that. And there's no easy way to make the money printer. And there's a bunch of different ways to going about making the money printer, which is the management decisions and whatever have you. And the biggest takeaway I think is you got to look at your target market. What is your game really focused on? Is it gameplay? Is it community? Is it artwork? Figure out what your target market is and cater the product to them, right? In some way, shape, or form. And where's your revenue? How are you making money, right? Because sometimes you can't just sell boxes to make it at the end of the day. You need other revenue streams, or you need expense reduction. There's something, to that effect, to where you, again, instead of being a money pit, you make a money printer. So that's my thoughts. Let me know if you have any comments down below. Cheers.